Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty and today we're going to be making this cool watermelon pattern here. This is a beginner level tutorial, although if you've never made a pattern using the diamond method before, then you might want to start with this video instead, which has a complete introduction to this way of making patterns in Procreate. It's a better place to start if you're someone who likes to understand the why as well as the how. For accessibility, all of my videos have fully edited subtitles, and the different sections in this video are all listed in the description if you want to go ahead and skip to the beginning of the tutorial. This pattern is just one from a new series of patterns I'm going to show you how to make, and by the end you'll have a full collection just like this. We'll be making all the motifs with this free stamp brush set from my Pattern Maker's Toolkit over on my website. It's got all of the motifs in there for you to trace over and help you get off to a quick start. The Pattern Maker's Toolkit is free to join and I'll put a link for that in the description. I'm also going to be using my Pattern Maker canvas and brush set. The links for all of these are down below, but if you don't have one, you can still follow along. You'll just need to make yourself a square canvas. This one is 12 inches square at 300 dpi, and then on an empty layer, just draw out a diamond like this one. And it needs to go all the way off the edges, like that, on each of these sides. So let's jump right in with the tutorial and I'll talk more about everything as we go along. So I am going to start by grabbing my summer icons set, and we want the watermelon ones for this one. So I'll grab the big one here and I'm going to do these in pink, and then I'm going to change the background colour to this lighter colour here, just whilst we're working. So in our sketch folder here, I'm going to go to my draw here first layer and I'm going to stamp out one of these watermelons. And then I'm going to add a layer and grab the other slice and do one of those, add another layer, and then put this one on a new layer. So I've got each of these on a separate layer so I can transform and move these around. So we'll start with this one. I'm going to tap up here to transform. I've got snapping and magnetics turned off at this point because it makes it easier for moving these around. So I'm just going to adjust the layout and spread these around the canvas. So I'm looking for evenly spaced motifs about this distance apart, and then I'm just going to duplicate these and then move these around as well, doing things like flipping them and rotating them to get a more interesting layout. And then once I've got this edge and this edge filled and kind of half of the canvas, I'm then going to duplicate this around the outsides, and that will allow me to see what is on this line and what is going to be on this line, because these parts here are going to be down there and these parts here are going to be down there. So I'm going to pinch to merge all of these together, and I'm going to merge this draw here first down with my sketch diamond. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap up here to transform, and I'm going to turn snapping and magnetics on now and distance and velocity all the way to the top. Then we can drag this down and snap it down into this corner. You'll see orange lines there, and you'll see how these motifs are then brought down there. Then we're going to duplicate the bottom layer again and drag it up and across to this side. Duplicate the bottom one again, drag it up and over to there. Duplicate it one more time and drag it down to there. Then I'm going to pinch these top 4 layers together. So now I've got all of these outside bits on one layer, and I'm going to tap and I'm going to invert that, and then we can see which ones are ones that we're working on, and then the green ones are the ones that we're duplicating. So now going back to this pink layer, we can start to fill in these gaps here. So I'm going to add a layer above it, and then we can work on an empty layer again to move things around. And we'll just stamp some more of these slices on there and fill in these remaining gaps. And then I'm going to go down to this sketch diamond layer at the bottom and use the select tool to spread these ones out a little bit. And then this one here, I would like to move that one down a bit, but it's actually this one up here that I need to move. So I'm going to grab my select tool on this layer, draw around this, and I could move it around over here, but I'm actually going to bring it down here because then I can see better where it's lining up with everything. And it's okay to cut bits out of the side of the diamond here as long as you've still got it going all the way to the edges on these sides. So now we can pinch all of these pink layers together. I'm going to delete the green layer and we'll repeat that offset to see how the pattern's looking. So we'll pinch these 4 layers together, and before I invert this selection, I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. I'm going to come up to the top here, swipe down again with 3 fingers and tap paste. Then I'm going to drag this up into the middle there. You'll see orange lines and that will say 1800. I'm going to duplicate this and put this into the corners of the canvas as well. And then we get like a zoomed out pattern preview to see how this is looking. And I think the only thing I need to change is this one here. I think that just could do with moving down a little bit. So I'll just delete that layer and invert the top one so I can see which one I'm working with, and it's this one here. So we'll just move that down a little bit. Turn snapping back off again. And I want to make sure it stays inside the edge. I don't want it going off the edge like that. So I'll just move that one down to there. And then maybe just move this one now. We can put that one back up there this time. There we go. Now we can delete the green layer because we've changed stuff. And we just repeat that offsetting around the edges again now. There we go. And if you wanted to put that into the zoomed out preview again, just to check again, you could do that, but I'm not going to bother with doing that now. So let's invert this one so we can see what's what. So now we come to illustrate our motifs, and the only ones we need to illustrate are these pink ones. The green ones are going to be made by duplicating around the canvas. So we come to our pattern folder and we can turn that on. And for this pattern, I'm going to drag the sketch above it so that I can still see all the details over the top of what I'm drawing. So I'm going to drag the sketch folder up there, and this layer I'll reduce the opacity to about 40%, and I'm going to change it to linear burn. This one we can bring down the opacity as well. So I'm going to use this light green colour for the background, and similar to the fruit pattern set we made a while ago, all of these patterns are going to be made by drawing the shapes in white and then scribbling over with a textured brush in the colour that we actually want them to be. So I'm going to start off by drawing all of these shapes in just plain white. So in my pattern folder on this layer here, I'm going to grab a white by double tapping up there, and from my brush set I'm going to use this tracing crayon here. And I'm just going to go ahead and trace over all of these. You don't need to stick exactly to the lines, you can go wobbly and wavy, and actually having variation on each one is a good thing. In terms of copyright and licensing for all these patterns we're making, I remain the copyright holder for the motifs and the patterns that I make in the videos. But as the copyright holder, I can give you my permission to sell whatever patterns you make using them in places like Spoonflower or Redbubble, as long as you've made it your own in some way by changing the layout, the size or the colours, for example. Do bear in mind that you won't be able to license it anywhere under any kind of exclusive terms, because the motifs, the artwork within the patterns, have been used first here by me in this video and will also be used by multiple other artists as well. And you could wind up in trouble if you've told your buyer they're buying an exclusive design and then they see these motifs somewhere else in someone else's art. Then we're going to fill all of these with colour drop, and then I'm just going to turn the sketch layer off. As with any textured brush, you'll get this halo here. We can fix that, all of the bits in one go instead of having to trace over them. So the way we do that is duplicate this layer, go up here to our adjustments, tap Gaussian blur, and I'm going to put a Gaussian blur of 3% on this. Then I'm going to hide that blurred layer, my select tool, I'm going to choose automatic selection and bring the threshold up so that it kind of ends halfway between the edge and the edge of this gap we want to fill. So about there. Then I'm going to invert the selection, add a layer and tap fill layer. Now we've got, if I turn this off, we've got our layer we drew underneath, and then we've got this layer on top that's smaller and just inside that edge. So with the blurred layer hidden or deleted, you can then pinch to merge those together, and now these are all fully filled. So let's turn our sketch back on, and now we can add some colour to these. So I'm going to add a layer above. I'm going to grab this green colour, and I'm going to grab my fun sketcher brush, and I'm going to clip this layer we've just added down over these white shapes. And then I'm just going to draw a nice wibbly wobbly green edge to be the rind on all these watermelons. Then I'm going to tap on the white layer again and add another layer above it. Because there's already something clipped above, this one's automatically going to get clipped. And now I'm going to choose this pink colour here and just fill in the pink bits of the watermelon, leaving a small gap of white in between. And I'm going to make these nice and scribbly. So this texture brush here is the fun sketcher brush. If I turn the texture overlays off, you can see this is how it looks without. And then as soon as you turn those texture overlays on, they bring up all these little flecks in it, and it looks really cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and colour all of these in now. So the next thing I want to do is add a bit of colour variation to this. So if we alpha lock this layer and then come up to the Summer Icons brush set, you see this brush at the top called a colour changer brush. In your palette, if you choose this dark pink colour here for your primary colour, and then for your secondary colour, we're going to choose this lighter pink, or you could even go for this peachy colour there. And then this alpha locked layer, we're just going to scribble over this and recolour it. And what this brush does, it has like a hue jitter on it, so you get a nice variation in the colours. Each different stroke you make will be a mix of these two shades here. So you'll get some like really dark pink and some more of that peachy pink there. But every time you draw with the brush, you'll get a different colour. So you need to make sure that you do each watermelon and finish drawing that before you then lift the brush up. So keep fiddling around with this until you've got some colours that you like. I really like this peachy one there. You can keep going over the same one several times to get the colours, or if once you realise you've got a set of colours that you like but you want them spread out a bit more evenly, you could change to just the regular Procreate airbrush, turn your texture layers off, and then you can just colour pick the colours that you want to colour in. So if we wanted this pink on this one here, you can manually colour it that way once you've got some colour variations sorted out. So I think I'm going to leave these as they are now. And then all that's left to do now is just the pen details on top. So we'll add a layer above our green ones. This one doesn't need to be clipped down. I'm going to choose this almost black colour here. It's not quite black, it's like a dark, really dark red. This colour palette here I'll put in the download with the brush set for you. And come back up here to my brush set. This brush here, Line Details one, it's a duplicate of this one that comes with the Pattern Maker Canvas brush set. And on this one here, what I've done is on the stabilization, I've just turned everything off on there so that we can get a bit more of a wobbly line. If I show you the regular Line Details brush, you can see this one has about 50% streamlining on it. So this one here is just this one duplicated, and I've turned off all of the smoothing on there. And then on this layer, we're just going to go ahead and trace over all of these little dots. And you can also put an outline over everything if you want, like if you wanted to do it like a little offset outline like that, nice and messy around the edge. What I think I'm going to do is just have touches of it here and there. So just going to put like small bits of outline over some bits of it. Another thing I like to do with my outline sometimes is just to do like a double wavy line, so I'll draw around it twice to get that really sketchy and loose outline. So that's all of our motifs illustrated. What I want to do now is just put a few little dots around here to fill the gaps. So I'm going to grab my mini dot brush here and just see how big this is. And I'm going to grab white, and I'm just going to put a few of these dots around here just to fill these spaces. And then I think I want these dots to be kind of colourful. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this layer. I'm going to alpha lock it, and then I'm going to grab just my colouring crayon, or you could use the airbrush we were using before, and I'm just going to add some colour to these, the ones that we've alpha locked. And I also want to add a bit of contrast between the watermelons in the background. So this bottom layer here, I'm going to duplicate that one. Then I'm going to grab this layer here and then swipe right on the bottom white layer of the dots. Tap to transform. I've got snapping and magnetics off for this. And what I'm going to do is just drag this down ever so slightly so that we've got a little bit of contrast there and a little bit of offset, and it kind of just looks like a misprint where things weren't quite aligned properly, and just gives it a nice little effect. And you can see here I've been careful not to drag this all the way to the edge or off the edge. So now we can tap to set that, and now we can build out this pattern tile. So I'm going to hide my pattern marker. I'm going to turn the sketch off now as well. So for duplicating these layers, you've got two options. If you've got loads of layers left, you can duplicate the whole group, tap and flatten. If you don't have enough layers to duplicate a whole group, turn off your background layer, swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all, and then you can paste a copy of the layer in. So that's 2 different ways of doing it. Either you can duplicate the whole group if you have plenty of layers, or just hide the background and copy all. Just get rid of this one because I don't need to unalpha lock it then. So I'm going to turn my background colour back on, and then on this layer here I'll drag this up and outside of our layers folder here, and we can turn that off. All of those layers are in there, safe for editing later if we need to, if we spot something is wrong or if we want to recolour it. So we're working on this layer now. Still got my colouring crayon brush, and I'm just going to put a mark going off each of these corners. Then we can duplicate this layer, and with snapping and magnetics on, we're going to put these around the edges in exactly the same way that we did when we were building out the sketch. Making sure that we've got those orange lines there. Then these top 4 layers we can pinch together, and with a sensible eraser we can rub out these bits in the middle, then go down onto this first layer and rub out the corners. And now I'm going to do the magic bit and turn these seamless textures on. If I zoom in, you can see how cool it looks with those textures on. And there we go, that is now a finished pattern tile. Using this diamond repeat will mean you get no gaps when you upload to Spoonflower, but before we save and export, it's always good to do a quick test right here in Procreate. So I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers to copy all, and I kind of come up to the top here, swipe down again and tap paste. Then I'm going to drag this up to 1/4 of the canvas until it says 1800 pixels there, and I've got my orange line snapping there. Then I'm going to duplicate this around the canvas like we did when we were building the preview, checking for the orange lines each time. Then we can pinch those together, and underneath I'm going to add a layer and fill it with a really dark black colour. Then when you zoom in, if there was any gaps in that pattern, you'd see that black line showing through there. And that's all looking good, so this tile here would then be ready to save as a JPEG and upload to Spoonflower or Redbubble or somewhere like that. Don't forget you can get the stamp brushes and the colour palette when you join the Pattern Makers Toolkit. It's kind of like a Patreon group and it's free to join. You'll get access to all the resources in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website, including those I make for my Skillshare classes, early access to some of my YouTube tutorials and drawing prompts, discounts in my Etsy store, and 1 new freebie exclusively via email every month. If you want to learn more about my Procreate to Photoshop workflow using automations and smart objects where you could build this out in Photoshop with just one click, then you can find that on Skillshare. And if you're new to Skillshare and you sign up using the link below, you'll get an extra 30 days for free. That's all from me. Don't forget to tag me at Becky Flaherty if you share your patterns on Instagram so I can see them. And don't forget to subscribe here if you want to see more pattern tutorials like this every Wednesday. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you soon.